My sister said, "Did you cancel the card?" I replied. I wasn't invited. Then I disputed the cruise, canceled the card, removed my name from their bills, and I just smiled because guest services would hold them until someone proved who really paid. My name is Thomas. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've been the emergency fund my family forgot to say thank you for. It started small. A car payment here when Dad's truck broke down. A security deposit there when my younger sister Lauren needed an apartment closer to campus. Then it grew. Tuition payments, wedding deposits, medical bills that insurance refused to cover. Every time the phone rang with that particular tone of desperation, I answered. Every time they needed someone dependable, someone who wouldn't ask questions or demand recognition, they called me. Lauren was different. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. While I worked 2 jobs through college to graduate debt-free, Lauren got a new car for her 16th birthday. While I ate ramen in a studio apartment, she posted pictures from beach vacations and music festivals. Mom and Dad's eyes lit up differently when she walked into a room like she carried sunshine with her. When I arrived, they barely looked up from their phones. I told myself it didn't matter. Family helps family. That's what you do. The cruise had been planned for months. A 7-day Caribbean voyage leaving December 20th, returning just after Christmas. Mom brought it up over Sunday dinner back in July, her voice bright with excitement as she described the itinerary. St. Thomas, Grand Cayman, KSML, shore excursions and formal dinners, a family suite with a balcony. She looked directly at me when she mentioned the cost, not asking, just informing. I had nodded slowly, already doing the mental math. Deposits, port fees, travel insurance, flights to Miami. It would cost me about 3 months of savings, maybe more with excursions and spending money. But it was family, and for once I would be included in something that mattered. I paid the deposits in August, flights in September, cabin upgrades in October because Mom mentioned Lauren wanted an ocean view. By November, I had transferred over $14,000, watching my savings account shrink with each transaction. Every time I clicked confirm, I imagined us together on that deck, watching the sunset over open water. Maybe this time they would see me, really see me. December 15th arrived with the first major snowstorm of the season. I had taken the week off work, packed my suitcase, bought new swimming trunks and sunscreen. The flight was supposed to leave December 19th at 6:45 a.m. Dad called me on the evening of the 16th. His voice carried that particular tone I had learned to recognize over the years, the one that meant bad news delivered with false sympathy. The cruise was canceled, he said. Too expensive this year. The economy was uncertain and Mom's hours had been cut at work. They couldn't justify that kind of spending right now. Better to stay home, save money, maybe try again next year. I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed against my ear, staring at my packed suitcase in the hallway. Something cold settled in my chest, but I pushed it away. Family helps family. That's what you do. The apartment felt emptier than usual on the evening of the 20th. I had nowhere else to be. No backup plans. I had cleared my entire schedule for this trip, turned down an invitation to my friend's holiday party, told my co-workers I'd be unreachable for a week. Now, I sat alone in my living room, watching snow pile up on the windowsill, drinking coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. My phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark. I hadn't heard from any of them since Dad's call. No follow-up messages, no apologies, just silence. At 7:43 p.m., my phone lit up with a notification. Instagram. Lauren had started a live stream. I almost didn't click it. Something about the timing felt wrong, felt deliberate, but curiosity, that terrible human weakness, made me tap the notification. The screen filled with bright Caribbean sunlight, crystal blue water, the distinctive white railing of a cruise ship deck. Lauren's face appeared, flushed and laughing, her hair whipping in the ocean breeze, my breath caught in my throat. Behind her, I could see other passengers milling around the pool area. And then Dad walked into frame holding 2 tropical drinks with little umbrellas. He handed one to someone off camera, and the camera panned slightly to show Mom wearing a new sundress I didn't recognize, smiling wider than I'd seen in months. The comments section exploded with emojis and excited messages from Lauren's friends. She was giving a ship tour, describing their suite, talking about the dinner reservations they had tonight. She mentioned the balcony, the ocean view, the premium drink package. Every detail, every excited word felt like a knife sliding between my ribs. I sat frozen watching my family celebrate on the exact cruise they told me was canceled. The same one I had funded, the same one that was supposedly too expensive this year. Lauren panned the camera again, and I saw my younger cousin Emma, Mom's sister's daughter. She waved at the camera, holding up a ship key card. Behind her, I could just barely see into an open cabin door, and my stomach dropped. It was my room, the cabin I had paid for, the ocean view upgrade I had purchased. Emma was standing in the doorway of my room, the one that should have had my name on it. They had given my cabin to someone else. They had taken my money, used it to fund their vacation, excluded me completely, and given my spot to another family member. The live stream continued for another 6 minutes. Every second felt like drowning. Lauren showed off the Leo deck, the buffet, the pool with the water slide. She talked about shore excursions tomorrow in St. Thomas. She mentioned they'd spent the afternoon exploring the ship after boarding in Miami. Miami, the city I was supposed to fly into yesterday morning. When the stream finally ended, I sat in the dark for a long time. Snow continued to fall outside. My apartment was silent except for the quiet hum of the refrigerator. I didn't cry. I didn't call them. I didn't post anything angry on social media. Instead, I opened my laptop and began pulling up account statements. The initial shock gave way to something colder, something calculating. I made a list. Every transaction, every payment, every single dollar I had transferred over the past 5 months for this cruise. Cruise deposit $2,400. Cabin upgrade to Ocean View Suite, $890. Travel insurance, $340. 4 round-trip flights to Miami, $180. Port fees and taxes, $520. Shore excursion package, $1,200. Specialty dining reservations, $380. Drink packages, $640. Pre-cruise hotel in Miami, $320. Transfers and tips, $180. The total came to $850, but that wasn't everything. I scrolled back further through my banking app, looking at every transfer I'd made to my parents over the past year. Car insurance for Lauren when she wrecked her sedan in March, $680. Emergency dental work for Dad in May, $1,200. Mom's medical bills from her hospital stay in June, $950. 3 months of rent when Lauren lost her part-time job, $3,600. New laptop for Lauren's final semester, $100. The list went on and on. The numbers climbed higher with each entry I added to the spreadsheet. In the past 12 months alone, I had transferred over $23,000 to various family members for various emergencies, celebrations, and conveniences. Not once had anyone paid me back. Not once had anyone even mentioned repayment because I was dependable. I was the bank account they didn't have to respect. I leaned back in my desk chair, staring at the screen until the numbers blurred together. Outside, the snow had finally stopped. The streets were silent and white. Tomorrow was December 21st. They would wake up on the ship, probably eat breakfast on their balcony, get ready for their first shore excursion. They would charge drinks to the room, buy souvenirs, take photos with purchased photo packages. All of it billed to the credit card on file, all of it expecting automatic payment. I clicked over to my cruise line account, the one I'd created when booking everything. My name was listed as the primary guest. My credit card was on file for all onboard expenses and final billing. Every cabin key card they were using was ultimately linked to my account. The ship wouldn't bill them directly. They would bill me. At the end of the cruise, every bar tab, every shore excursion, every specialty meal would hit my card in one massive final statement unless I remove my payment information. My cursor hovered over the account settings button. One click, that's all it would take. Remove the credit card, remove the payment method, let the charges fall back on whoever was actually using the services. But that felt too passive, too indirect. I needed them to understand what they had done. Not through explanation or confrontation, but through consequence. I opened a new tab and logged into my bank account. Then I began the process of disputing charges. Not all of them, just the cruise-specific ones. Deposit, cabin upgrade, flights, port fees, travel insurance. Each dispute required documentation, proof of non-delay of services, evidence that I had not received what I paid for. That part was easy. I had not boarded the ship. I had not flown to Miami. I had been explicitly told the cruise was canceled. Therefore, I had not received the services I purchased. The bank's fraud department would investigate. Credit card companies sided with card holders in these situations, especially when the claims were legitimate. The cruise line would receive notice that payments were being reversed. They would attempt to charge the card on file for the disputed amounts, but that card would no longer be valid. I would cancel it tomorrow and request a replacement with a new number, which meant the cruise line would have one option: charge the passengers directly for all outstanding balances. I submitted the first dispute at 2:17 a.m., then the second, then the third. Each one required careful documentation, screenshots of the cancellation call log with written statements explaining that I was told the trip was canceled and was not permitted to board. By 4:30 a.m., I had submitted disputes for every major cruise-related charge. Total value $89.50. Then I moved to the smaller transactions, the ones they probably assumed I'd forgotten about. Lauren's car insurance payment. I contacted the insurance company and removed myself as a payer, effective immediately. Mom's medical bills that I'd paid directly to the hospital. I requested billing statements be sent to her address, not mine. The laptop I'd purchased for Lauren, I filed a claim with the retailer for non-delay, citing that it was shipped to the wrong address and I never received it. Each action was quiet, methodical, invisible from the outside. By the time dawn broke on December 21st, I had reversed or removed myself from 14 different financial obligations tied to my family. The bank disputes would take a few days to process. The cruise line would receive notification of the payment reversals within 48 hours. My family would still be at sea when everything came crashing down. I spent most of December 21st out of my apartment, unable to sit still. I walked through snow-covered streets, hands jammed in my coat pockets, replaying years of small humiliations and invisible sacrifices. There was the time I was 16, saving money from my summer job for a used car. I had almost enough. Just 3 more paychecks and I could buy the Honda Civic I'd been watching for months. Then Lauren turned 14 and Dad sat me down at the kitchen table. She needed a car for when she got her license next year, he explained. Something reliable, safe. The Civic I'd been eyeing was perfect. Could I contribute to the family fund? I watched them buy that car 2 weeks later and hand the keys to Lauren. She had smiled, excited and grateful, but she never thanked me. I don't think she even knew where the money came from. I rode the bus to school for another year. There was the time Mom needed surgery, a procedure insurance only partially covered. The hospital wanted $5,000 upfront. I was 22, working 2 jobs, barely making rent on my first real apartment. I took out a personal loan, paid the hospital directly, then spent 3 years paying off that loan with interest. Mom recovered beautifully. They threw a celebration dinner when she got the all-clear from her surgeon. I showed up with a card and flowers. Lauren had organized the party, and everyone praised her for being such a thoughtful daughter. No one mentioned the surgery bill. There was the time Lauren got engaged and wedding planning became a second full-time job for everyone in the family except me. I was consulted exactly once. When Mom called to tell me the photographer cost more than expected. Could I chip in just this once? I sent the money. I attended the wedding. I was seated at a table in the back with distant relatives I barely knew. Lauren's maid of honor speech thanked our parents for their endless support and generosity. My name wasn't mentioned. Every memory felt sharper now, outlined in the cold clarity of betrayal. I had convinced myself for years that this was normal, that family meant sacrifice, that being dependable meant being invisible. But watching that live stream, seeing them laugh and celebrate on a trip I had paid for in a cabin I should have been sleeping in, I finally understood the truth. I wasn't family to them. I was a resource, something to be used when convenient and discarded when unnecessary. The coffee shop was warm, filled with holiday music and the smell of cinnamon. I sat by the window watching people hurry past in winter coats carrying shopping bags and wrapped gifts. Everyone seemed to be heading somewhere towards someone, part of something larger than themselves. I felt completely alone. But beneath that loneliness, something else stirred, something cold and precise, a sense of control I had never allowed myself before. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. They were still at sea, still celebrating, still completely unaware that every financial support structure I had built for them was being systematically dismantled. Tomorrow they would dock in St. Thomas. They would go ashore, shop for souvenirs, take photos at the beach. They would charge everything to the room, expecting it all to be magically handled when the cruise ended. But the magic was gone. I had pulled back the curtain. The first message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on December 22nd. I was making tea when my phone lit up on the counter, vibrating with an incoming text. Lauren's name appeared on the screen. I let it buzz twice more before picking it up. The message was brief. "Hey, did you mess with the cruise account?" My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed at me to explain, to defend myself, to ask why they had lied to me. But I didn't. Instead, I typed, "What are you talking about?" 3 dots appeared immediately, bouncing as she typed. "The ship is saying there's a problem with payment. Dad had to go to guest services. Did you cancel your credit card or something?" I stared at those words, feeling something shift in my chest. They were starting to notice, starting to panic. I replied, "I was told the cruise was canceled. Remember?" The 3 dots appeared again, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Finally, that was a miscommunication. We figured it out. But we need you to fix whatever you did with the payment. A miscommunication." That's what she was calling it. Not a lie, not a deliberate exclusion, a miscommunication. I typed slowly, carefully. "I disputed the charges because I didn't receive the services I paid for. I'm not on the ship." Her response was instant. "Thomas, come on. Don't be petty, just fix it." Petty. I read that word 3 times, each time feeling it land like a slap. I set the phone down without responding. The tea kettle began to whistle, shrill and insistent. I poured hot water over the tea bag, watching the liquid turn amber. My phone buzzed again. Then the ringtone started. Lauren's contact photo lighting up the screen. I let it ring through to voicemail. She called twice more. Then Dad called, then Mom. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I turned off my phone completely, dropped it in a drawer, and sat in my living room drinking tea in the dark. Outside, someone was shoveling their driveway. The scrape of metal on pavement rhythmic and distant. Christmas lights blinked on houses across the street, reds and greens reflecting off the snow. Inside, I felt calm. Strangely, perfectly calm. They wanted me to fix it, to make it easy for them again, to be dependable. Thomas, the family ATM, always there to smooth over inconveniences. But I was done being convenient. I spent December 23rd building a comprehensive documentation file. Every transaction, every message, every voicemail. The printer ran for 40 minutes straight, churning out bank statements, credit card receipts, text message screenshots, call logs. I organized everything into categories. Cruise payments, medical bills, vehicle expenses, education costs, emergency funds, miscellaneous support. Each category had its own folder. Each folder had highlighted totals at the bottom. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger required heat, required passion. What I felt was colder, more focused. This was about establishing a permanent boundary, about making sure that when this was over, there would be no confusion about who owed whom. My phone, which I turned back on that morning, exploded with messages throughout the day. Lauren sent 14 texts ranging from demanding to pleading. Dad called 6 times, leaving voicemails that shifted in tone from irritated to concerned. Mom sent a long message about family loyalty and how disappointed she was in my behavior. Not one of them apologized. Not one acknowledged the lie. Not one admitted they had deliberately excluded me from a trip I had paid for. I opened my laptop and composed an email, not to them, to myself, a formal record of everything that had happened, time-stamped and detailed. I attached the documentation folders, saved it to cloud storage, and scheduled it to send to my personal email in 30 days. Insurance in case they tried to rewrite history later. My phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. I answered out of curiosity. A woman's voice, professional and polite. "This is Angela from Royal Caribbean's Guest Services Department. I'm calling regarding account number." She rattled off my booking reference. "There seems to be a substantial balance that requires immediate attention. The credit card on file has been declined and we need to arrange alternative payment before your party disembarks tomorrow." I let her finish, then said quietly, "I'm not on that cruise. I paid for services I didn't receive, and I've disputed those charges with my bank. You'll need to contact the passengers directly for payment." There was a pause. "Sir, the reservation is under your name. You're listed as the primary guest and financially responsible party." "I never boarded," I replied. "I was told the cruise was canceled. The people currently in that cabin are not authorized to use my credit card. I suggest you speak with them about settling the outstanding balance." Another pause. Longer this time. "I see. Can you confirm the names of the passengers currently occupying the cabin?" I gave her their names, all of them. Lauren, Mom, Dad, Emma. She thanked me politely and ended the call. 26 minutes later, Lauren called again. This time, I answered. She was crying. "What did you do?" "They're saying we owe $11,000. They won't let us off the ship tomorrow until we pay." "Thomas, we don't have that kind of money." I sat at my desk looking at the neat stacks of printed documents and said simply, "Neither did I." The details came in fragments throughout December 24th. Text messages from Lauren, voicemails from Dad, a pleading email from Mom. The ship had docked in Miami that morning, but they hadn't been allowed to disembark. The outstanding balance was $11,420, including all onboard charges, disputed fees, and administrative costs from the payment reversals. Port fees alone were $640 when charged back to the passengers directly. Shore excursions they'd booked and completed $800. Specialty dining, $470. Drink packages they'd used all week, $680. Photo packages, $340. Spa services, $920. Gratuities and service charges, $750. And the big one, the one that made the total balloon, the cabin cost and flight refunds that the cruise line was now trying to reclaim from the passengers since my bank disputes had succeeded. Another $620. They were trapped at the port, bags packed, unable to leave until someone paid. Dad's voicemail was the most revealing. "Thomas, I don't know what you think you're proving here, but this is cruel. Your mother's having a panic attack. Lauren is hysterical. Emma's parents are furious. We're going to miss our flight home. We need you to fix this now." Still not an apology, not an admission, just anger that I had stopped being convenient. I sat on my couch drinking coffee, watching the morning light filter through the windows. It was Christmas Eve. The apartment building was quiet. Most of my neighbors had left for the holidays, heading to family gatherings and celebrations. I was alone, same as I'd been on the 20th, same as I'd been most of my life when it mattered. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Local area code, Mr. Hayes. A woman's voice, older, tired. "This is Deanne Carter, Emma's mother, your aunt. I think we need to talk about what's happening." I hadn't spoken to Aunt Deanne in over a year. "What would you like to talk about?" "Lauren called me from the ship. She's terrified. She says you're refusing to pay a cruise bill out of spite." "That's not accurate," I said calmly. "I disputed charges for services I didn't receive. I was told the cruise was canceled, so I sought refunds through my credit card company. The fact that they went on the trip anyway isn't my problem." Silence on the other end. "Then Thomas, they made a mistake. They thought you wouldn't want to go, that you were too busy with work. They told me it was canceled due to cost. Then they used the money I'd already paid to fund the trip and gave my cabin to Emma." More silence. "I didn't know that. Neither did I until I saw Lauren's Instagram live stream from the ship." A long exhale. "Emma showed me that video. I thought it was strange that you weren't there, but she said you'd canceled last minute." "I didn't cancel. I was never invited." Deanne's voice softened. "How much do they owe?" "I don't know. That's between them and the cruise line." "Thomas, Aunt Deanne," I interrupted gently. "I'm not paying for a vacation I wasn't allowed to attend. I'm not paying for people who lied to me. I'm not paying because they expected me to be convenient. If they can't afford the trip, they shouldn't have gone." She tried to respond, but I continued. "I've paid for their emergencies, their mistakes, their celebrations for years. I paid for Lauren's wedding without even being thanked in the speech. I paid for Mom's surgery. I paid Dad's truck repairs. I paid Lauren's car insurance when she wrecked her sedan. I paid her rent for 3 months when she lost her job. I paid for the laptop she needed for school. I have receipts for all of it. Would you like to see them?" Silence. "Because none of them have receipts for me," I finished. "None of them can show a single time they helped me when I needed it. Because I never asked. I just gave and they just took." When Deanne spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "What do you want them to do?" "I want them to figure it out themselves the same way I've had to figure everything out without expecting someone else to fix it for them." I ended the call. They settled the bill eventually. I learned later that Dad took out a short-term loan, something with a brutal interest rate from a payday lender. Mom borrowed money from her sister, the one they'd always looked down on for not being financially stable. Lauren set up a GoFundMe that got exactly $37 in donations before she deleted it out of embarrassment. Emma's parents paid their portion and stopped speaking to my parents entirely. They flew home on Christmas Day, arriving late in the evening. No one called to tell me they'd made it home safely. The messages that did come were different now, shorter, angrier. "Dad, you've destroyed this family." "Mom, I hope you're happy with yourself." "Lauren, everyone knows what you did. We're telling everyone." I didn't respond to any of them. On December 26th, I woke early and made breakfast for the first time in weeks. Actual breakfast, not just coffee and toast, scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit. I ate slowly, sitting at my kitchen table watching the morning light fill the apartment. My phone was off. The silence was extraordinary. I spent the day organizing my apartment, something I'd been meaning to do for months. I went through drawers and closets, throwing out old paperwork, clothes I hadn't worn in years, accumulated junk that served no purpose except to collect dust. In the back of my bedroom closet, I found an old photo album from childhood. I flipped through it slowly. Birthday parties, holiday dinners, beach trips. In every photo, I was in the background, standing at the edge of group shots, partially cut off by whoever was taking the picture, always there, but never quite visible. In one photo taken at Lauren's high school graduation, I stood behind Dad, only half my face visible over his shoulder. Lauren was front and center, smiling bright, arms around Mom. I remembered that day. I'd driven 4 hours to be there. I'd brought flowers. No one had noticed when I left early because I had work the next morning. I closed the album and placed it in the donation box. Over the following weeks, the messages from my family slowed, then stopped entirely. I heard through Aunt Deanne that they were telling people I'd sabotage their vacation out of jealousy, that I was selfish, unstable, cruel. Let them say whatever they wanted. I had the receipts. In mid-January, I received a formal letter from an attorney. My parents were demanding repayment for emotional distress and financial damages caused by malicious disruption of a planned family vacation. The letter claimed I had acted in bad faith and cited potential legal action if I didn't settle within 30 days. I forwarded it to my own attorney, a friend from college who specialized in family law. She read through my documentation, reviewed the timeline, and laughed. "They don't have a case," she said over coffee. "You paid for services you didn't receive. You were told the cruise was canceled. They proceeded without you using your money. You're entitled to those refunds. If anything, you could sue them for fraud." I didn't sue. I just sent her response letter to their attorney outlining exactly why their claim had no legal merit. I never heard from them again. It's April now. 5 months since that December night when I watched Lauren's live stream and felt my entire understanding of family shatter and reform into something colder, clearer. I moved in February. New apartment, different part of the city, a place none of them knew how to find even if they wanted to. It has a balcony, small but enough for a chair and a plant. I sit out here sometimes in the evenings, watching the city lights blink on as the sun sets. I paid off the last of my personal loans this month, the ones I'd taken out for their emergencies over the years without sending money to them every month. My savings account has grown more in 4 months than it did in the previous 4 years. I signed up for a photography class, started going to a gym, joined a book club that meets every other Wednesday. Small things, personal things, things I never had time or energy for when I was too busy being dependable. Last week I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, I found a message from Emma. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. My parents told me what really happened. I'm sorry I was part of it. I didn't know they lied to you. I didn't know you paid for everything. If I'd known, I wouldn't have gone. I just wanted you to know that you deserve better." I read it 3 times before responding. "Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. We've messaged a few times since then carefully. She's not asking for anything, not trying to mediate or fix things, just acknowledging what happened. It's more than anyone else has done. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my parents or Lauren again. Part of me wonders if they even think about me anymore, or if I've just faded back into the role I always played, invisible until needed. But I think about them sometimes. Not with anger anymore, not with hurt, just with a strange kind of clarity, like looking at a photograph of people I used to know. They taught me something valuable, even if they didn't mean to. They taught me that being dependable doesn't mean being disposable. That family should be built on respect, not convenience. That sometimes the most important person to be loyal to is yourself. The cruise ship is still sailing, I imagine. Still carrying families and couples and friends to warm destinations and sunny shores. Still charging drinks to rooms and taking photos by the pool. Somewhere on those ships, maybe someone else is quietly paying for everything, hoping that if they just give enough, they'll finally be seen. I hope they learn the same lesson I did. I hope they learn it costs less than $11,000.